We are coming on the air this afternoon with breaking news. The sentencing verdict is in. A jury sentenced an Oak Ridge man to death just a short while ago. Sean Finnegan was arrested back in August of 2020 for the kidnapping, rape, torture and murder of Jennifer Paxton of Knoxville. A jury found him guilty of all of those crimes on Monday, and now, as you heard, the jurors have decided his fate. We do want to warn you the details in this case are graphic. And joining us live outside of the courthouse is 10 News reporter Ellis Rold, who has been following this case for days now, and the decision finally in this afternoon. Ellis.
Hi, Brittany. Yeah, so like you said, the jury came back this morning around 11:15, and they have sentenced Sean Finnegan to death for the murder of Jennifer Paxton back in August of 2019. I've got my notes here from the courtroom. Like you said, I've been here all this week and last week. They deliberated for about 3 hours yesterday afternoon on this sentencing before calling it a day. And then deliberations this morning took another 3 hours. And the jury has worked on this case for 9 days. And they finally reached a verdict on the sentencing phase this morning. They were working on the trial last week to decide that first-degree murder charge. This is a capital case. And so while we know, an important thing to note, while we know Finnegan's sentencing for the murder, he still needs to be sentenced for his other crimes. That's the kidnapping, the aggravated rape, things like that. And so the judge can choose to have Finnegan either serve that time consecutively or concurrently. So he can essentially add on to Finnegan's sentence or have him serve that time essentially at the same time, if that makes sense. So the defense is likely going to appeal this verdict. They're probably going to cite multiple things that they say the judge did wrong. Some important details from inside the courtroom this morning. After the verdict was read, Jennifer Paxton's family hugged prosecutors and cried. They've been in the courtroom all of this week and last week. During their victim impact statements, they talked about how they promised Paxton's mother, who has since passed away, that throughout the trial they would be here supporting Paxton and showing up for her. Another detail from the courtroom this morning, defense attorney Kit Rogers, after that verdict was read, he put his head in his hands and tried to comfort Finnegan, patting him on the back, things like that. Finnegan showed no reaction while this verdict was being read. He's been fairly stone-faced throughout this trial. And again, he's the first person to be sentenced to death in Tennessee since 2021. So this is a really big case. To recap the case a little bit, towards the beginning of last week, neighbors testified that Rebecca Dishman, who was Finnegan's then girlfriend at the time of the murder, had told a neighbor about a body in their freezer. The police eventually got a search warrant for the house. When they went into the house, they checked the freezer that was actually located in the upstairs master bedroom of Finnegan's home, and there wasn't a body in there. So that officer actually testified that he thought that was suspicious. He said the house was extremely clean and neat, and so he started looking around this bedroom and actually found something under the bed. When he touched it, it was ice cold to the touch, and that's when he alerted other officers that he thought that they might have found her. Paxton's body was frozen solid. She had been kept in that freezer, prosecutors say, for about 8 months. The chief medical examiner in this case also testified. She had some of the most important and disturbing testimony from this case. A lot of the jurors looked disturbed. She showed 41 graphic autopsy photos of Paxton's body. The prosecutors say that Finnegan mutilated her body after her death. There was dozens, if not hundreds, of blunt force injuries, sharp force injuries to her body. In the sentencing phase, moving on, so that was the trial. Talking about the sentencing phase, this is the second part of the trial after he was found guilty of murder. The defense actually called Finnegan's brother's ex-wife to the stand. She testified about Finnegan's personality, about his upbringing. She detailed a lot of physical and sexual abuse that he went through as a young child. The defense was essentially trying to bring some humanity to Finnegan, telling the jurors a little bit more about him. He declined to testify in his own trial, as is his right, in both the guilty or not guilty phase and the sentencing phase. The state kind of came back with that and said, you know, a tough childhood doesn't really excuse the gruesome crimes that we've seen in this case. And it sounded like the jury took that to heart. The state asked the jury to give Finnegan the maximum sentence, which they have in this case. And they deliberated first on that murder charge over the period of 2 days for about 11 hours. And they deliberated on the sentencing phase for 6 hours, 3 hours yesterday and 3 hours this morning. So Brittany, the jury has really spoken in this case. Sean Finnegan will be sentenced to death. It's an important note that he is 56 years old. He's likely to not be executed. Executions take a long time in any state. So he will be going to jail for the rest of his life, and he is sentenced to death in this case. Brittany?
Ellis, thank you so much for your reporting on this trial and that in-depth recap there. We appreciate that.